My name is Jim Ellers. I'm the Senior Director of the Office of Gift Planning here at Caltech, and it's my delight to welcome all attendees to this afternoon, late afternoon, virtual student panel. And it is now my pleasure to introduce President Thomas Rosenbaum, who has a few words to share with us. President Rosenbaum.
Welcome to all. It's just wonderful to have you join us this late afternoon, evening, and thank you, Jim, for the introduction. Normally, we would be looking forward to a Torchbearers event in the President's Residence Garden. I have a picture of it behind me to remind you of that, but I can feel, even through the electronic communication, the Caltech ties that bind. They're here in person or virtual, and we're just so grateful that you continue to be such caring and dedicated members of the Caltech community. I came across a quote from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt from a 1940 address that he gave at the University of Pennsylvania that I thought was apt for these quickly changing times. So he noted there that we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And if there's one place in the world that does this with consistency and with flourish, it is the California Institute of Technology. Many of you have been through the core. Certainly you'll hear some of that in the discussion today in the undergraduate panel. And the notion of the core is not to teach a particular subject, or even what option you choose is not as important as the quantitative reasoning to address problems, and not to be intimidated by problems. Students come out of Caltech fearless. That is why they are so valued no matter what they do. They also learn how to collaborate. They learn how to adapt. They know that the Caltech Honor Code will help carry them through the challenges and vicissitudes of life. And this is at no time more important than now with the pandemic. The world will be different when this ends, and it will end. But the fundamental skills that we teach, that our students contribute to in their conversations, in their challenging of each other and challenging of the faculty, will serve them well and let them adapt as the world changes. We've also seen that we've had to adapt a lot in terms of pedagogy, in terms of switching to remote. And we're trying to capture the essence of a Caltech education through this, in terms of having living and learning groups, students who interact with each other, are connected to faculty, are connected to upperclassmen. We're shipping out lab supplies through the mails. We're doing all kinds of things to capture a lot of what Caltech is about. So I'm confident that our students will benefit that way, but boy, do we miss seeing them on campus. The generosity of the torchbearers makes this all possible. Your belief in the mission of Caltech, your prioritization of our students and our faculty, and discovering fundamental truths about the universe, and developing technologies that will improve people's lives. So thank you for all that you do for Caltech. It is such a great pleasure to be able to count on you and to see you, and I look forward to greeting you in person in the near future. So thank you for all you do to build the future. And with that, let me turn the virtual podium back to Jim.
Thank you very much, President Rosenbaum. That was great. One of the things that President Rosenbaum mentioned is that every spring we have our annual Torchbearer Appreciation Luncheon. And one of the things that my team and I have noticed that the Torchbearers enjoy most about this luncheon is being able to interact with our students and learn about what they're up to. Obviously, for right now, we can't do that face-to-face, but the Office of Gift Planning thought this would be a great time to bring some students to you, at least virtually. And with that thought in mind, I am delighted to introduce our new VP for Student Affairs, Kevin Gilmartin, who will then move forward in introducing the students. Thank you very much. Kevin.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, President Rosenbaum, for those timely and very inspiring remarks. And I want to reinforce what President Rosenbaum just said in thanking all of you who've joined us today for your commitment to supporting Caltech. It's so appreciated, and particularly for your support for our students. I'm obviously taking on this role as Vice President for Student Affairs in challenging times, challenging for faculty, for staff, and for our students. And for me, really, in all the work I do at Caltech, and particularly the administrative roles I've taken on, it really does always come back to our students. For 3 decades now, I've just felt so fortunate to be a member of the faculty here. It's such a privilege to teach and to work with our students. They're talented, they're creative, they're curious, they're so engaged. And I have to say, particularly as a humanities faculty member, in working with students in their humanities coursework, students who often elect to do a second major or a minor in English, I have the sense that their work in my courses is meaningful to them, partly as an alternative to the demands of the STEM curriculum, but also as an opening out onto issues of history and social change and creativity, the kinds of topics my courses tend to engage. And it's allowed me to get a sense of the importance of the whole person and not just what goes on for students in the lab at Caltech. Becoming dean, which I was undergraduate dean for 4 years before becoming VP, was really a humbling experience in many ways, not least because there was so much for me to learn, but I was particularly struck by how much work by staff, by student leaders went into ensuring that the students I taught in the classroom were not only well-fed and reasonably well-rested, those basic needs, but that they were also provided with opportunities to live meaningful and rewarding lives outside the classroom. I came to appreciate even more how much that shaped the extraordinary individuals that I did encounter in the classroom. Already in my role, I've met with the Caltech Y board, with us athletic staff. I have experience working as dean with the student leadership groups, particularly the IHC and the ARC. It's my commitment in coming into the vice president's role to really support all of those, that whole range of activities. I oversee offices and services that are closely involved with our students, including athletics, the dean's offices, performing and visual arts, student wellness services, the Office of Residential Experience. My sense is that these groups that support and work with our students are critical not only for the student experience, but for Caltech's integrity, really, as and well-being as a learning community. We thrive when our students thrive. Tom mentioned our response to COVID. We have students living and learning remotely. In the short term, that's obviously going to be a significant part of my work. As a faculty member, I can attest to the work that our Center for Teaching and Learning has done to support faculty through the transition to remote learning. It was a compulsory experiment, obviously, that we went to at the end of last year, but we're going into this year much more with much more planning and experience and more intentionally, and I'm confident, and I've had really positive feedback so far on how the fall term is going. I want to close briefly with just some reflections on why it's important and meaningful to me at this time to have the chance to serve Caltech and to support our students in an administrative role. In part because I do feel that as a humanities faculty member, I have a distinct perspective on Caltech. When I arrived here in the 1990s as an assistant professor of English, many years ago, it was often a challenge for me, I'll acknowledge, to feel connected with the Institute's research and teaching mission. And some of my earliest forays into administrative work were shaped by a desire to become involved and to find out what this somewhat exotic institution for me was and how it worked. But I have to say that the world has really changed profoundly since then. And Caltech's position in the world has shifted in fundamental ways. Our STEM research and teaching mission has become more urgent than ever, obviously in times of global climate change and pandemic, but also when there's a real need not only for innovation of the kind that Caltech can lead, but just simply for evidence-based public discourse and policy. So my commitment to the role of Vice President is really shaped by an awareness that Caltech's research and teaching mission has never been more critical to our shared responsibility as citizens. The engaged student leaders of today, and particularly I think those with strong STEM backgrounds, are all of our best hope for the future. And I'm delighted that we have some of them here today. We have a panel of juniors and seniors. And so now I would like to bring on board Logan, Paulina, and Varun. Can you join us? Thank you. And invite each of you to introduce yourselves.
Hello, my name is Logan Apple. I am a senior studying computer science here at Caltech. I am the president of Dabney House, and I'm currently living in Winchester, Virginia, part of this pandemic ongoing. When I'm not busy with academics, I work as the co-editor of Totem, Caltech's undergraduate arts magazine. I sing as a tenor in one of Caltech's undergraduate a cappella groups, Out of Context, and I serve as one of the developers on the undergraduate website Donut. I also regularly participate in events hosted by Prism, Caltech's LGBTQ+ group, and I help enforce and promote environmental sustainability here on campus. Next up is Paulina.
Hello, my name is Paulina Ridland, and I'm from Crestline, California, which is in the Southern California mountains of San Bernardino. I'm a senior in mechanical engineering with a focus in robotics, and I'm currently the president of Ruddick House. Through Ruddick, I've been able to work with Caltech to pilot new house support programs, especially in these virtual times. And I guess some other things that I'm involved in is I serve as the undergraduate representative on the President's Committee for Naming and Recognition. And I co-created and am the chair of Tech Support, which is a mentoring program for first-year students. So now we're gonna hand it off to Varun.
Hi, my name is Varun. I am a senior studying bioengineering. Originally hail from Midland, Michigan, and I'm currently home in Michigan. Similar to Logan, I serve as currently the ASCIT president. ASCIT is the Associated Students of Caltech, which is our undergraduate student body. I'm a member of Fleming House and also the vice president, and was privileged to receive the Robert L. Nolan's Leadership Scholarship last year, and also am the captain of the tennis team.
Great, thanks everyone. So to begin the panel portion of our event today, obviously no one winds up at Caltech by accident. It's a difficult place to get into, and it's an intentional place. But I want to begin just by asking you what surprised you most about Caltech once you arrived, and particularly about your fellow students.
Yeah, I'll start off. So when I chose to come to Caltech, I did so knowing that it was a smaller community, right? A more closely connected community. That was one of the biggest factors of my choice between Caltech versus other universities. I wanted something that was more, I guess, more intimate, more well-connected, people I could know and really become friends with. What I didn't anticipate was that those friends would become more like family to me, I guess. There are brilliant minds here at Caltech, no doubt, but there's also kindness and hearth in ways that are impossible to articulate. People here care for each other, look out for each other, and come together in a spirit of community that's unlike anywhere I've ever been before. I love the people that I work with here. They're just amazing.
So I had a similar experience to Logan, but I guess, so I'm from a smaller community and smaller school, not very educationally advanced, I suppose. And so coming to Caltech, I was a bit intimidated by just all the things you hear, the amazing things that happen at Caltech. And I was just really surprised to see my peers who have done just really incredible things and just how human they were. Like we'd be doing things at odd hours of the night, just trying new board games, or they make silly mistakes even though they've done these crazy, amazing things. And it just makes you realize how human everyone is. All the people who have won really amazing awards, or not just won them, they've earned them. But regardless, like at the end of the day, they're still human.
Yeah, I certainly want to echo Logan and Paulina's sentiments there about the true family that Caltech's community fosters. But what really struck out to me when I joined Caltech was the immensely collaborative atmosphere. I mean, everybody talks about Caltech, and Caltech even, hails itself as a very collaborative environment. But as a student, as a freshman, when you're kind of jumping into this new climate of Caltech and wondering how you're going to deal with the academic rigor, it's invaluable. I mean, the house system especially serves as a pillar of support. And I was immediately struck by how many upperclassmen, how many seniors and juniors were so willing and invested in helping the freshmen join abroad. I think a perfect example is a new initiative that Paulina started. And within hours, she had over 80, 90 upperclassmen that had signed up. So a true testament to the immensely collaborative environment. And the second thing that really stood out to me, and President Rosenbaum mentioned this a little bit when discussing the core, but as a freshman, for me as a bioengineer, my interest is in biology, but when the core forces you to, learn quantum mechanics and waves in completely different disciplines, it is extremely empowering. And, even as a freshman at the end of my first year, I felt that I could contribute to research meaningfully and not just as a student who was learning and bring new ideas. So I think the Caltech environment as a freshman especially is indescribable.
That's great. And, it's interesting. I said how privileged I've felt through the years to teach students here. And as a humanities professor, again, I teach in a seminar environment. And I've just been struck again and again as courses meet, how students enter with that spirit of intellectual exchange and collaboration. It's not something that I need to shape as a professor. So you've already mentioned a few things about some of the extracurricular activities you've been involved in, leadership roles, internships, volunteer efforts. Could you talk a little more about some of those, and particularly as you go through, maybe reflect on one or two or something where you feel it maybe had the greatest impact on you, or where you feel you were able to have an impact on the campus community?
Yeah, so I would say, thinking back to perhaps one of the most memorable experiences, or one of the most impactful experiences that I've had here at Caltech, was probably doing that work that I previously mentioned about environmental sustainability, which is a problem I believe everybody should be involved with in some way. About a year and a half ago, we ran a study to calculate food waste from house and cafeteria meals. It was a staggering amount of food just being tossed, thousands of pounds per week. As part of the initiative, we began a program to repackage unserved food and distribute it to homeless shelters and other locations where it was needed. For food that was set out but not eaten, especially in the houses, we established some bio-waste bins. So all of the houses have them now, and that are places where food will be handled a bit better than just being tossed into some dump somewhere. And I think it was great to see a tangible impact being made to better Caltech as a whole.
Yeah, and I guess a slightly different route is I've been involved in athletics and clubs, but I think the route that I've had the most impact on and that's had the most impact on me would be through the house system, just even like in ways that you don't expect it. So for example, I'm in Ruddick House, and every year we build a really, really large structure for our annual party. And I'm in mechanical engineering, and so it was just amazing to be learning about beams and those sort of things in class, and then just that night to go out to the courtyard and actually build with beams and think about the stress on different elements of the party, and just really be able to practically apply that like literally the same day has been just really phenomenal. And I guess like other house things, obviously I guess house leadership has been really phenomenal. Like it's such a small campus that you really can be involved in a lot of different ways and have an impact in a lot of different things. So like Varun mentioned and I mentioned before was the tech support program. So the way that I've been able to start that has really been through the connections that I've made with Felicia Hunt. She's amazing. So this summer I worked with her from the ORE and 2 other students to make tech support, which is a mentorship program between the Frosh and the current students. And it's really to help in this virtual time, because I don't know any alumni out there. It's really difficult to transition to coming to Caltech, especially first year, and then even more so virtually, and without the house like to support you. And so this is trying to help that a little bit. And we had a lot of people sign up, and we're really excited about that.
Great. Yeah, I mean, obviously Ask It, our undergraduate student body, being the president's organization, has consumed a lot of my time and really impressed upon me the role of bringing our community together. The houses are great as providing support for students, but also thinking about how we can unify these houses and bring together a sense of community and togetherness has been one of my primary objectives. And also now, as we're seeing problems, I was really proud that our team on Ask It has thought about how to not only look at the problems that we see with underserved minorities, communities, and now have launched a new community service initiative to mentor these students and help them, expose them to STEM. You know, I remember a quote by Melinda Gates that says, if you want to teach a man, you teach a man, but if you teach a woman, you teach a family. And so inspired by that, we've launched a new initiative with the YWCA, exposing young women into STEM. And the second big part of my Caltech time here has been in athletics. So I've been on the tennis team, and we've made great strides in turning the corner. And thankfully, with former VPSA Joe Shepard and President Rosenbaum's support of Athletic Director Betsy Mitchell's vision, when I joined, we were an unranked team. And, you know, Caltech has a rep for not being the most athletically successful by any respects. And if you think about our basketball team being featured recently in Sports Illustrated for having a 310 game losing streak in the conference, and now they have a winning record. Our tennis team started unranked, and now we've had several top 20 national wins. We cracked the top 20 as well. And personally, I've also been an All-American the last 3 years, and I'm always cautious to share this because self-promotion truly isn't in the spirit of Caltech. And, you know, as Caltech, we're always really humble students, but truly to convey that, I think Caltech as a community is becoming less unidimensional, and now we're able to compete not only in academics, but also in athletics, which is a really exciting thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you were speaking. You know, again, I find as Caltech does become more successful in some of these areas, it's striking that the collaborative spirit is very much part of it. I mean, I'm struck that our teams really are, our athletic teams really are teams, and that the teamwork extends all through students' lives. The other thing I can attest to, just for those of you who are in the audience, you know, the Caltech curriculum is incredibly demanding. And the fact that these student leaders give so much of their time and energy back to Caltech as a community is something that, that we can all be grateful for. So you're juniors and seniors, you're more than halfway through, and you're obviously starting to think about what may be coming next. So tell us a little bit about how your undergraduate experience has shaped your plans for after Caltech.
Yeah, for me as a CS major, there's a good combination of theoretical courses and practical courses that are offered here at Caltech. And I think both of them have taught me a lot, have let me explore a variety of different topics in CS, everything from graph theory to discrete combinatorics and beyond, you know, into networking and graphics and all of the linear algebra behind it. It's been great. But one course in particular has helped guide a lot of what I want to do, and that was taught by Professor Michael Vanier. Some of you out there hopefully know him. He's a great CS prof. He's taught a lot of introductory courses, as well as some in-depth language courses. But his course, CS 131, a class on creating programming language and creating compilers, was one of my favorite courses of all time. It made me very determined in what I wanted to pursue and how I wanted to work in the future, like working at a level with these languages, understanding how to develop new languages for the future that people can use, anyone, not just computer scientists, but good ways to develop for biologists and physicists who need coding more and more in this day and age. Computer science really touches everything, and what binds it all together is the languages that you use. So that's become a main focus of what I want to do.
Yeah, so I guess for me, the big thing that I was unsure of when I came to Caltech is whether I wanted to go pursue grad school or go into industry. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with, or struggle perhaps isn't the right word, but it's a decision that you have to make, at least like when you graduate, and you could decide to go either way when you're done with that. And so to help with that decision, I decided to pursue a SURF, which is the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship that Caltech offers. So you go in the summer and get some really cool research experience with some phenomenal professors and just amazing labs. And so I did a SURF in robotics in the Amber Lab at Caltech. They have Cassie, who's the orange two-legged robot that walks around on campus like an ostrich sometimes. And I really like the subject. I'm really into robotics, but through doing the SURF, I learned that I have difficulties with some aspects of research, like the time scale and the pace and the solidarity. And so these things have just helped me inform that decision. And I know a lot of people who have gone the opposite way, where they thought they wanted to go into industry and they've done a research SURF and they've decided like, wait a second, this is exactly what I want to do. It's amazing.
Myself, when I entered Caltech, I knew that I was really interested in medicine. And as entering as a freshman, I anticipated perhaps a career as a physician. But once I joined Caltech, I was really inspired by my professors and the research they were doing. And it really impressed upon me the importance of basic science and basic science in the role of medicine in accelerating the rate of discovery of new therapeutics and treatments. And so I'm planning on pursuing graduate school and as a MD PhD student. But beyond that, I'm really open to either industry or academia, wherever the path takes me and wherever I have the opportunity to make an impact.
Great, thanks for those inspiring accounts. So obviously, as a number of us have mentioned, we are in challenging times. You are living and learning remotely. Share with us some of the challenges that you've faced, but also perhaps if you feel that there have been opportunities or positive outcomes in the current way you're living and learning.
Yeah, virtual learning sure hasn't been easy, that's for sure. A lot of what makes Caltech wonderful is the social connected nature of everybody here. Without that, it's become uniquely difficult to collaborate, to retain that wonderful sense of community. But we've been trying, for sure. The IHC, which is all of the presidents and the committee chair, we put together a number of programs to reconnect everyone as much as possible. And we're trying to make sure that everybody feels welcome. I feel like perhaps the biggest challenge is trying to adhere to the honor code, trying to collaborate and make sure that everything stays organized. In a virtual environment, things are unusual. Not a lot of policies and not a lot of have taken that into account, the cases that we're in and how to share and how to talk. But in terms of a social nature, I think we're also doing quite well to figure that out, just by providing people virtual events and opportunities to get involved. So definitely there are problems, but we are working our best to fix them.
Yeah, and there are definitely some limitations that are inherent with the technical difficulties that we have virtually. For example, I live in a pretty rural area, and so my parents have very poor internet, and my dad's been working online home full-time, and my brother and I are both taking Zoom classes. I guess this is last term, so we were taking Zoom classes. My mom was also working online at home. And it was just really hard to balance the internet with that. But something that the professors have done, which has made it actually much, much easier, almost just like in general, like if during normal term, if this happened, this would be better for everyone, is they've been recording their lectures. And so if you're having internet issues or your time zone is different such that your lecture would be at 1 a.m, you're able to watch it later asynchronously at your own pace if you wanted to watch it slower or faster or as many times as you want to. So that's been really helpful.
I think collaboration is always huge when the academic rigor is so difficult, and especially working across time zones, being on the East Coast is a little bit difficult. Find myself going to bed sometimes when the sun is rising in the mornings. But I think resiliency is a key feature of all Caltech students. And as an example of our sense of community, several hundred of my peers and my classmates have moved back to the Pasadena area, are living together. Probably a little bit of a nightmare for Vice President Gilmartin and trying to keep these students off campus. But I can assure you they're there to work together on homework and not party together. So we're working through it, and really are appreciative of all the efforts that the Center for Teaching and Learning has done in developing a new learning management system. So a lot of these things that have new changes have been coming on the horizon have been accelerated, and it's really made our transition a lot more go more smoothly. Great,
thanks. Before we move on to questions from the audience, I did want to just go one more round in this portion because I was really struck that each of you has mentioned by name a faculty member or a staff member. Mike Vanier, Betsy Mitchell, Felicia Hunt, and I put those names out there because you mentioned them, but you could certainly pick someone else. But if you could just tell us a little about a relationship with a staff member or a faculty member that's been meaningful to you and how it's shaped your experience at Caltech.
Yeah, so to get into a bit more of my relationship with Vanier, that was a fun one. So I took his CS11C track back as a first-term freshman. And I say took, I mean, I audited it, but I did all of the work and turned everything in. And afterwards, I was like, in hindsight, I should have just petitioned for an overload and, gotten the credit for it. And I was like, is there any chance I could retroactively do that? And that ended up sparking a conversation where he was like, yeah, we'll figure it out. You did all the work and you did a good job. And we'll go from there. And that led to a series of emails about not us just talking about that, but also talking about programming languages as a whole and talking about like computer science topics, random things. We even talked about some of my previous work in doing like video game design. He was like, you got something published to Steam? That's really cool. I want to take a look at it. And I was like, Mike Vanier wants to play a video game I made when I was 16. That's hilarious. But it's been great. I feel like the relationship I've developed with him is strong. I've TA'd 2 of his courses now, done a lot of work there, and we talk all the time just about random things, in CS and how things are going. So I'd say it's been a very positive relationship to have overall.
Yeah. I think pretty much also any student that you'd ask is going to have some sort of member of the Caltech community who's not a student that they feel that they have a special relationship with. So that's one thing. So another is, so Felicia, she used to be the head of the Title IX office back when we matriculated in as freshmen. And so we've seen her in that capacity, and then she's moved to, that's since become the equity office. And so she's now, I forget what their official position is, but she gets to work with the IHC, which we're eternally grateful for. It's, we had one in-person meeting before we went to COVID, and we had Thai food. It was fantastic. But no, Felicia seriously has been amazing. Like, she's so like approachable and really easy to reach. Like, if I have a problem and it's destroying us, we're trying to figure out a solution, we can't find one, she's just a text or an email or a phone call away, and she responds. And she's just super a great go-between. Like, if there's a problem that administration has that they want fixed, or students have a problem, and she's just really great at kind of translating and helping everyone get where they want to be. And I'm sure on her end, it's a lot more work than it looks like from our end. Like, for us, it's like, she snaps her fingers and then it works. But we know that's not the case. But there's been specific things within Ruddick that could have really been catastrophic that she's kind of swooped in and saved the day with. So eternally grateful to Felicia for that.
So hard just to pick one. I mean, all of our faculty are so phenomenal and take the effort to get to know each of the students individually. But I mean, as you mentioned, Betsy Mitchell has been instrumental in my time here at Caltech. Also goes without saying, Tom Mannion, who's our director of student activities, is a Caltech favorite for the past several decades. And I think the key tying factor in between these faculty is always their genuine sense of investment in each of the students. The personal relationship I've developed with Tom and Betsy has been tremendous. They regularly check in on me, how are you doing? And genuinely feel that these people are invested in your future and you want to go out and make them proud. So I'm very blessed to have developed these relationships over the past few years.
Yeah, I can say in my years as dean, each of the people you mentioned, Felicia, Mike Vanier, and Betsy, were really people who would always check into the dean's office if they had questions or concerns about what was going on in a student's academic life or personal life. It really is an incredibly supportive community. So at this point, I want to invite Jim back, and we can have some questions from our audience.
Thanks, Kevin. By the way, this is the coolest part of being able to be kind of helping out, being the representative from the Office of Gift Planning, is I get to be the person who asks the audience questions. So I feel lucky to be able to do this. So thanks so much, Kevin, Logan, Varun, and Paulina for your comments already. And I will start with a question from Stuart Goodgold, class of 68. He asks, is Interhouse Competition still active, and how has COVID-19 affected it?
I guess I can take this one. At the risk of making Logan and Paulina upset, Interhouse Competition is still active. I will say Fleming has won. As many spots are on the trophy, our name is there. Fleming's name is there for the Interhouse Athletics competition. But now actually it has taken a different form, since we aren't obviously able to play broom ball and dodgeball in person. There's been new online gaming that's taken place of the sports that we play.
Oh yeah, I was just going to follow up and say esports has actually become a big part of it. I watched some of the Twitch streams between houses. Like there's a video game called League of Legends, and there is a competition for it. I think almost all of the houses, if not all of the houses, formed teams. And it was really an enjoyable experience. I think it's definitely more the kind of sports that I tend to get involved with personally, just from my own history. And so I found it quite engaging. I think it's an interesting route to take, and I kind of hope it continues in the future.
Cool.
Great. Paulina, I saw a lot of nodding there. I'm guessing you have something.
Yeah, no, I second what both Varun and Logan are saying. I think the interesting part is that just like different parts of the house being involved in different sorts of things. Like you have the parts of the house who are more interested in the in-person sporting games, like when we had the Ath games where you go play broom ball, and I guess it'd be floorball because that's what we were doing. But anyways, and then the part of the house that's more interested in the online games, it's like a different part, but just kind of seeing it in a new light. And so it's just really cool how things have morphed and different groups have decided to do different things.
Thanks, Paulina. So I will ask another question that I don't know who posed this question, but it says, we understand Caltech is challenging. Which academic subjects are the most thought-provoking for today's students? Which courses have provided the biggest surprise?
Nice anonymous question, whoever that was. I like that.
I guess I can start with this one. For me, I was really inspired by my physics courses. As I kind of mentioned, I'm training as a biologist, as a bioengineer, and the opportunity to take deep level physics was one that was extremely thought-provoking to me, to try to understand and maybe take an interdisciplinary approach, look at the problems that I was looking at in biology through a different lens. And actually I've been able to apply some of these concepts of, Boltzmann distributions and things of that nature, which a normal biology major at a different school probably would never hear of. So for me, that was the most thought-provoking. So it was in a different field, something that normally I wouldn't have thought of being exposed to.
Yeah, I think, just really quickly, I had a similar experience, but I think it was with a class that I kind of went into it not knowing at all what it was going to be like, and then it just really surprised me. So there's this class I took that it's a humanities course, so it's not offered that frequently, I suppose. But it's called critical making. So you've heard of critical thinking, but have you heard of critical making? And it's the idea of when you're making things and not necessarily for a purpose, like just putting stuff together, like what is the intent behind it and what are the assumptions that you're making that you're not necessarily thinking about. And it just really made me think about, like, as a future engineer, what sort of decisions are you making and who are you excluding in making these decisions? What assumptions are you making? And it just was really eye-opening as far as that was concerned, trying to like apply it to the design process of, for example, robots that people will be making, and just kind of trying to make it as inclusive as possible.
Yeah, I'd actually like to speak to the benefits of a couple of the humanities courses here at Caltech, actually. There were 2 courses taught by Dr. Ann Sullivan, who I think changed my perspective on how a humanities course should be taught. She was one of the most organized, incredible people. And the 2 topics were on what seems to be oddly specific. And there's like semi-science related topics in humanities. One was on volcanoes, and the other was on picturing the universe, study and examination of the universe through the lens of 19th century literature. And it was very eye-opening to see not only social changes in that time, and just understand how people have evolved in their opinions to scientifically related matters, both volcanology and understanding the broader universe, but also tying that into modern day. I found it a very eye-opening couple of courses, and I'm thoroughly happy to have taken them.
So this question, Logan, you're on again. This is specifically.
Sure.
Do Darvas still play highlight in the courtyard? This is from Eric Eichhorn, prior to COVID, of course.
Yes, actually, some still do. In addition to that tradition that we still occasionally share, we've also taken up a few other things that we do in the courtyard pretty regularly. In addition to that, let's see, the first thing that comes to mind is practicing a form of sword fighting under SCA, which is a slightly modified form of traditional, like more medieval sword fighting that we do with like practice swords and stuff. But yes, highlight is still a common thing that we enjoy doing.
This question, thank you, Logan. This question is for everyone. What is your most unique, memorable experience at Caltech, which you can share with us?
So this is probably not the most unique or quintessential one, but it is pretty unique and quintessential. This last year, I took a robotics class where we had a professor who was new from JPL, and he happened to be friends with someone who had graduated the previous year. And so at the beginning of the class that I took it, I was very intimidated by him. He'd done a lot of amazing things and all that stuff. He's been involved in some really awesome projects. But this happened to be, I was taking the class during the time of the year where we build the large construction project that I mentioned earlier. And one time I was working on some projects, and my friend texted me and she asked like, the professor and I were walking around campus, like, would you like some help to build some stuff? And I was like, I mean, sure, why not? And so they just showed up, and then like, you know, fast forward 10 minutes, there I am building with the robotics professor and my friend who graduated. We're building OPI, and then there's another one of my friends who was in the class came out and saw all of us there and the professor, and she did a very visible double take at the scene that was unfolding in front of her. That was a pretty fun experience.
Cool. Thanks, Paulina.
Varun, Logan, thoughts?
I think for me, one of my favorite experiences was Frosh Camp. So during my freshman year, it's very unique. So a lot of schools' orientation is typically this monotonous and long week of listening to speeches. But for our freshman year, we went up north to the Oxnard area, Ventura Beach, and we were able to spend 2-3 days together as a freshman class, really getting to know each other, uniting and bonding. I distinctly remember we had a faculty come speak to us in chemistry. And then after that, we went out to the beach and we're roasting marshmallows by the bonfire. And I think this experience of with the other freshmen really bonding made a huge difference for our class and developing identity. And now we have relationships across the spanning several of the houses. I remember meeting Paulina there, and we shared our first class of freshman year together. So I think it was really seminal experience and really enjoyable. I mean, I look back and think about all the great bonds that I formed with some long-term friends.
I think for me, it's so hard to choose just one. So many things flashed through my head when I thought of most memorable personal experience. But I'm going to choose one from freshman year, which is thoroughly enjoyable, and it was just a small trip out to Joshua Tree, and we went in the evening, and we got as far away from civilization as we could for an evening, and just sat on the rocks and looked up at the stars. And I felt like that was the first, like, most powerful bonding moment between me and that other group of people that happened at Caltech. It was the moment where I felt like I'd really found a community that I wanted to belong to. And it was something that I would love to repeat if given the chance just one last time to experience it.
Great responses. Thank you. And then can you all tell us a bit about your lab work that you're doing while studying remotely? The person who posed this question says, it appears as if you're receiving the necessary materials at your remote locations, ?
Sure. So I guess there's two parts to this. One is our individual research work, and then the second is about COVID. So I guess, yeah, I can share a little bit. My work specifically is focused on immunotherapies. I was really interested in neuroscience coming in, but that interest a little bit shifted to cancer stem cells and the possibility of these cancerous stem cells causing resistance to certain chemotherapies in brain. And that eventually took me to a project where we developed a vaccine immunotherapy against glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive form of brain cancer. So now I've applied several different principles that I've learned from Caltech classes. One of the central parts of my research was a concept I took from Francis Arnold's class, the recent Nobel laureate. And then with regards to the lab classes, actually, my professor, Justin Boyce, who teaches several of our bioengineering classes, has done a phenomenal job of adapting our lab classes to make so that we can do it at home. So we have a requirement class with medical devices, where we build, medical devices. And this year, he completely changed the class, sent us all kits at home, and we're building pulse oximeters, so little devices where you can stick on your finger and read your oxygen saturation levels from home. And so it's been really enjoyable, even though you're not doing it alongside your peers and with friends. It's been immensely grateful to have received all the materials and everything done so organized.
Great. Logan and Paulina, are either of you currently taking lab courses or working in a lab?
As a CS major, that doesn't happen too frequently.
So I'm actually taking a course that would have been a lab course if it was in person. It's a robotics course. And the way that the professor is accommodating this is doing everything in a virtual environment. And so instead of building the robot, we're going to be quote unquote building the robot in the virtual environment. So I'm actually really looking forward to this. He showed us today some examples, and it looks like the robot in 3D space, but on your computer. So I think this will actually transfer pretty well.
I have what I think we may have room for one more question, but maybe not. I'm not sure. But I have what is actually a question I had that's combined with the question that someone has posed to me to pose to you. And that is, I've heard in talking to you all, you refer to Caltech as down to earth. It's very much like a family. It's a very collaborative environment. It's a wonderful place to learn. I hear this, again, I hear this with so many of the people in the audience who are alumni who studied at Caltech. That's not what you hear from a lot of top tier schools that are like Caltech. In your opinions, what makes that, what allows that to happen here?
It's difficult to really pinpoint, one feature, one, reason why, but I distinctly remember as a freshman sitting at Frosh Camp, and we heard from the director of admissions, and he came to us and he spoke to us and said, we've assembled this group of 230 students here today, and we didn't just pick the 230 most accomplished students, but when we were reading your essays, we were looking at your applications, we specifically chose people that we thought would come together and make the most successful class. And I think that couldn't be more true when you think about the students that we have. They're all students that really fit well together. The personalities all align. I'm not sure how admissions does it, but these are students who genuinely care about lifting each other up. I've never seen any instance where a student, for example, is finishing a homework set and other students really struggling and they won't explain the concept to them or won't help them with the homework set. You know, in fact, it's quite the opposite. If you figure something out, you rush to go explain to your friend how you figured it out. And really lift everybody else together. And I think once this culture is established, it just propagates year after year after year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The people here at Caltech are so down to earth, the students. And I feel like a good portion of that is as a result of the house system. I mentioned earlier in one of the answers to the other questions, just how much I was surprised by how connected everything was. Again, a smaller community, you know, sort of subdivided in this way to even smaller communities, more connected communities. It's amazing how they've all become like family. And I feel that it's, again, hard to pinpoint a single result, as Varun said, but it's a combination not only of the social atmosphere being developed, but likewise, I would say, a sort of common interest. We all have this dedication to like learning and growing and understanding more, I think, which is very fundamental. But that combined with just being really awesome friends, I feel is a key for success. And the house system unequivocally supports that in ways that I can't imagine anywhere else would.
Thanks, Logan.
Yeah. Just quickly going off of that, I wholeheartedly agree with what both Varun and Logan had to say. And I think just to accentuate what Logan said a little bit is how much cross-class interaction there is, I think really catalyzes this phenomenon. Like when I was a freshman, I was next door to a senior, and that was at first intimidating, but then you realize that they've gone through what you've gone through, and they're still people, and they want to get to know you as a person. Like everyone sees each other as peers and people, even though like people have done amazing things. Like you just heard Varun talking about the stuff he's been able to accomplish. Like that's amazing, but he'll still talk to you like you're a person who's worth his time. And I think that's the thing is Caltech, that people treat each other like they're worth the time to get to know and teach these concepts and just really become and make these phenomenal friendships, and just seeing the value in the people themselves, I think, is what makes it unique also.
Thank you, Paulina. I'm going to end on that note and just say thank you, Paulina, Logan, and Varun, and Kevin, for your time this afternoon, soon to be this evening. On behalf of the torchbearers in the audience, I just want to say I've learned a great deal from all of you, and it's wonderful. And Frank Bernal and Jackie Colopy and I will absolutely be taking all four of you to the Athenaeum as soon as we can, just because I frankly have a ton more questions that I want to ask you guys. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And I know, Logan and Varun, it's now heading deeply into the evening for both of you. And Professor Gilmartin, I know you're busy as the VP of Student Affairs. So thank you all, and very appreciative.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah.
Finally, just my wrap-up comments. I would just like to say thank you to each of you in the audience for the foresight you've shown in supporting Caltech through either a bequest intention or a life income gift. Your planned gift will support many aspects of our mission here at Caltech, including providing scholarship support to future techers like we heard from today. And I have one anecdote that I want to share that's important. I just want to briefly mention two siblings who I've been working with who are with us this afternoon, Marty Gardner Sossaman and her brother Bob Gardner Jr. A while ago, both Marty and Bob made generous commitments to Caltech through their estate plans. And then what happened was over the last 3 years or so, Bob and Marty have started to gift some of what was to be a bequest to Caltech during their lifetimes to benefit current undergraduate students like those we've heard speak today. By creating these Gardner Family Fellowship scholarships, Bob and Marty have been able to see the effect of their generosity during their lifetimes. I just want to say thank you to Bob and Marty for doing this. We did a nice write-up on the campaign website over the summer on this, and it was a delight to work with both Bob and Marty on this. And if this is something anyone else in the audience would ever like to talk to me or anyone in the Office of Gift Planning about, we're always here to talk about that. And with that said, I would just like to thank the students, Vice President Kevin Gilmartin, and all of you for thinking of Caltech through a planned gift. And I would like to thank you all for joining us and wish you all a lovely evening. Thanks again.